Hey, John Harris. How you doing?
I'm well, Drew Dougherty. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, but I could be better because we did about 3-4 minutes of radio without hitting the record button.
That happens, man. It happens. How many times have we done that over the
We've
years?
done
When
it. We've
we
done it.
text each other like, "Oh, dude, sorry, man, I
Yeah.
didn't record." Oh, that's just it's a brutal feeling. Or when you go to save the file. This happened to you the other day when we were doing this. You went to go save the file, and it was like, "There's no more room on the disk." Like, wait, what? What do you mean? And then you go through, and then you start.
Yeah, Mark had to blast out his 2014 Curtis Drummond interview recently, and I think
As
there's no more Max Bulla
yeah.
one-on-ones on the share drive anymore.
So,
Yeah.
a peek behind a curtain. Well, we're literally 3 feet away. This is kind of our,
Right.
When Mark and I do radio, this is where we sit. So I sit in the spot, and you're sitting where Mark usually sits. So Mark and I were doing radio, and we're kind of in between a couple, doing some segments. And he starts just reading off the list of interviews that have been on that computer, and it was Keith Mumphrey interview.
Akeem Hunt, time to go.
Yes. Akeem Hunt, Jonathan Grimes. I mean,
Wonder how those
names
guys are.
blast from the past that were good interviews, but you just haven't heard those words and names in a long time. And they're still on the computer. There are certain ones that we would hang on to. Like there was an interview that I was able to do back in 2017 of a former quarterback of this team that I just kept in that file. Just to have. You never know when you need it. Look back. I remember thinking when we did the interview, like, man, if he makes the Hall of Fame, we'll play this. This is his first day in the building, all that. But I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff on a computer. So
You're right. I don't think
we're
Tom
gonna-
Savage will make the Hall of Fame. That's
No,
knock
right.
on you, Tom. You're a
You're
great
right.
guy. You're a Hall of Fame
I don't think
dude,
Brandon
but
Whedon will make it either.
I
So
don't
yeah,
think that interview with Tom Savage is going to be played in union with his gold jacket at Canton. So anyhow, this is In the Lab. It's presented by Xfinity. Yesterday was the final day of Texans minicamp. We're recording this on Thursday. And yesterday, J.J. Watt was also in the building. It was cool to see him checking out the camp. He is going to be a color commentator along with play-by-play voice Ian Eagle for CBS this year. That's a pretty powerhouse duo right there. Going to be fun to see how he does, just like everything he's done in his life. JJ's done it at a high level. I expect nothing changes in this instance either. But it made me wonder, how many games do you think they'll have that are Texans games? How many Texans games do you think that duo is going to call? I'm going to set the over-under at 3.5. You think they go more than that? You think they go less than that?
okay. So here's one of the weird things about JJ's at CBS, and typically. And I remember before the schedule came out, I started thinking, yeah, I think we could get JJ for a few games. I know the math is a little bit different now that Fox and CBS kind of cross over a little bit more. But it had typically been the AFC, which Texans are in.
Right.
That would be CBS. NFC would be Fox. Well, I just looked at the schedule. If my math is correct, as it sits right now, there are 15 games. The last two with the Chargers is TBD, Colts TBD. So 15 games.
I kind of get the sense that Chargers game, it's late in the season. I bet that's a primetime game.
I think it is.
And when I say primetime, it could be like a Saturday afternoon game, but that's
right.
the only one on.
That's exactly
I
right.
consider that a primetime.
So my guess is that one will not be CBS.
Yeah.
My hope is that week 18 won't matter, and that might just be CBS to get it in at noon against the Colts. But there are 7 games on CBS.
Oh, wow. That's okay. I didn't do that advanced math. Yeah, that's tough.
So I think the number is a little bit lower.
Right.
But when you start looking at the games that potentially, he could do at the Colts, week 13, that's a CBS game. I could see that. And that would be great. There's a Jaguars game we play at home, week 10. I think that could definitely maybe
They get frisky and Lawrence starts playing better and
maybe
Travis
so.
Hunter's exciting. That
maybe that Jaguars game before Ravens week 5. I could see that, because they're the number 2 crew. This was the Charles Davis, Ian Eagle group. And I love Charles Davis.
He's awesome.
I loved him. And I think he would be great on college football, but it's going to be weird to not hear Charles doing games. And he might. I just think he might do him in a different way this year. But miss Charles Davis, but the fact that JJ is replacing him is perfect. I think JJ and Ian are going to be fantastic. That said, they're the number 2 crew. So it's got to be a relatively large-sized game.
Yeah.
At Ravens, that could be one of those.
Big one.
That could definitely be one of those.
That could be a number 1. That could be a Nance Romo one.
Yeah, it definitely could. So, and that's the hard part. Like, at Jaguars early in the season, Titans week 4, are those teams going to be at a level that it's going to draw the number 2 crew in those games earlier in the season? So,
it might be tough, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit tougher. Now, I'm just looking at our schedule. Obviously, what impacts it, what's the rest of the schedule for that week? You know, when we play the Ravens in week 5, what's the rest of the NFL doing? What else does CBS have? Because you're right, it might be a Nance Romo game at noon. Typically, they'll do an afternoon game. My hope is there's a Chiefs something game going on in the afternoon, and the Chiefs will end up, getting Nance Romo, and we'll get JJ and Ian for at Ravens. Maybe that's the way to break the streak there in Baltimore, to have JJ calling the game for us on CBS. I don't know. There's got to be a way to break it, but I feel like I'm like you and Mark, and you guys are like me in a sense that I'm kind of intrigued by all the broadcasting stuff. Who calls what game? How do they figure it out? We CBS, we're Fox. What time the game is, all that kind of stuff. Like all that stuff kind of intrigues me. I don't know how much fans like it. I think some do, but I think it's the fact that it's 99 that we're talking about. I think that matters to a lot of fans. The fact that he was in a building on Wednesday, that matters to a lot of fans, and for good reason.
I don't know who asked it, but it was a good question. But essentially it was, are you going to be nervous? And he said, well, the way I look at it is half of the people watching and listening are going to hate whatever I say because it's not complimentary of their team. And then the other half are going to like it because I'm saying good things about their team. It's all going to depend. So going in, that's a good perspective to have. It's
here's the other thing.
Play-by-play guys don't really give a crap about your team one way or the other. Even though we like to think they do. They don't. They're pretty unbiased for the most part.
Here's the other thing, too. People are going to have preconceived notions and preconceived biases of what they think JJ is going to be biased towards. Like, for example, if last year JJ called the Steelers-Chiefs game. Well, what's everybody thinking? Well, JJ is going to talk about TJ, and he's going to prop TJ up. And I listened to a good 2.5 quarters of that game, and he barely mentioned TJ. It came up a little bit, but it was really Ian, and I think Nate Burleson did the game, that were kind of goading him into it. And I think as he gets more comfortable with that, TJ's this guy, and we know how much JJ loves TJ. And that's, I love that brothers can – fend for each other in the way that they do and feel for each other the way that they do. That preconceived notion, and as soon as he says something good about TJ, oh, look at JJ, he's a homer for TJ. Well, yeah, because he just beat a triple team and made a sack.
Right.
But people aren't going to hear that. And it's the same thing with the Texans. Oh, well, the Texans are his team. He's definitely going to give credit to the Texans. And we know JJ. We know that's not always going to be the case. JJ is going to tell it like it is. If guys miss a block, if CJ misses a throw, if guys miss tackles, he's going to say it. He's going to call them out. But there's going to be that thought of, well, JJ's a Texan. He's going to be biased towards a Texan. I mean, you find that, pretty much everywhere. Troy had to deal with that. Troy Aikman when he was calling Cowboys games. And they called a lot of them. And Troy was very fair, but it took a long time for that.
On the Cowboys. Troy Aikman has never held back.
No, he's never held back. But it still took a while for fans to think, oh, Troy's going to be so biased toward the Cowboys. Yeah. I think last 10 years, I don't think it's been like that. I forget when I'm listening to Troy call a game that, oh, yeah, he's a former Cowboy. JJ will have to he'll have to fight those biases. But if he just calls the game as he sees it, he's going to, he's going to be fantastic. He's got good pop culture references. He can fly off the cuff a little bit. He'll be fun. You've interviewed him numerous times. I have as well. He can go with the flow on anything. But those are the things that he's going to have to fight. But he can't think about fighting them. He just has to call the game the way he sees it and just let the rest go. And let people think he's got biases. we know he loves TJ. We know that he loves Houston and loves the Texans, but we know he's going to do the job he's asked to do because that's just him.
He came on the Goat Talk with Andre Johnson and Jonathan Joseph a couple months ago, and they asked him, they're like, who's better, you or TJ? And he said, hey, career-wise, you got to give TJ the nod.
Yeah.
He's done it longer and more consistently than I did it. But then he added the caveat. He's like, but, man, I'll put my 4-year stretch up against anybody's, including his, that 12, 13, 14,
that
15.
stretch.
3 players of the year defensively. The Comet year of 14 where he had MVP votes. What, he finished second to Aaron Rodgers that year in the MVP?
Second, yep.
Yeah, and he's
second.
JJ has said Rodgers deserves that MVP. He touches the ball. It's for the quarterbacks. It's a quarterback award. But, man, he scored 5 touchdowns, the 20.5 sacks.
If a defensive dude was going to win it and on a team that didn't make the playoffs, that was the year.
He probably needed one more touchdown, the Texans to make the playoffs.
Yep.
And maybe 2 more, maybe break the sack record. I think that would have gotten it. If he'd have broken the sack record, the Strahan sack record.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I mean, it took all of that, and he probably wins.
Yeah.
Yet he was that close. He was that close. I mean, he had people's attention. It was just every single week in 14 watching what he was doing. And I still, my favorite moment, one of his great games, I think a lot of people forget. It got kind of brought up the other day because I think Seth Payne and Sean Pendergast were talking about Sports Radio 610. They were talking about, CJ, did he get injured in the weight room? Talking about injuries in the weight room. And when that comes up, immediately Ryan Mount pops into my head because Ryan got injured after the Cleveland game. But in that game, people forget is the person who caught Ryan Mount's first touchdown pass ever was J.J. Watt at wide receiver on a fade route against former Texan Christian Kirksey. And it was just amazing. But in that game, J.J. also had back-to-back 15-yard roughing the punter penalties. And he had those.
He was this close to blocking.
Oh, he was that close. And at the time I remember thinking, okay, that's why he was out there that day, because they felt like he could block it. And he got close. He just couldn't finish it. And I just remember seeing him on the field, and Bill O'Brien is just steaming because it's 2 15-yard penalties. One of them led to a Browns touchdown. The Browns really couldn't move the ball that day, but they got a short field, and they ended up scoring a touchdown off one of them. I think the other one, I can't remember exactly what happened, but they didn't score on the other one. So I was like, no harm, no foul. But he had 2, and JJ after the second one walks over the sideline. And when JJ would get tired, I always remember this, he would put his hands on his hips and just kind of his elbows would go out. He would kind of just stand there. And it was almost like he was looking like, Bill O'Brien, come get mad at me, like get this out of the way or whatever. And so JJ was over there on the sideline for like 2 plays. I'm like standing 10 yards away, just clear as day. And finally I see O'Brien kind of stewing, and O'Brien walks over and he's like, okay, he kind of signals JJ goes back in there. In that game, Watt had the catch for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He also had 4 solos, an assist for 5 combined tackles, a sack, 3 TFLs, forced a fumble, and had a fumble recovery. And this was the game when we came home. We were on a flight. For some reason, this flight took a long time. I don't know why. And I remember I was looking at this, working out. I was writing on the way home. It's dark. It's, because we played him in November. And I just remember thinking, JJ's got a number in almost every one of these defensive columns.
Yep. He hit the buffet, as Sean Pendergast likes to say.
And it's like, I'm looking at it going, Jesus, he hit everything here. One thing he didn't hear, it was quarterback hurries. And it really got me starting thinking about the rest of that year, like looking at the stat sheet, how many of those columns did he hit? And it got to a point where nearly every game he was hitting every column with a number.
Did he deflect a pass in that one?
He did not deflect a pass.
That's rare.
Yeah, he didn't have a quarterback hurry or a pass defense in that game, but he did have 3 TFLs. And I remember those TFLs came in big in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But it was this game when I realized he's hitting every single freaking category in the defensive stat sheet. And that's when I realized this dude he's a different dude. And I think he's different on the air. difference not the right word, but I don't think it's going to be cookie cutter because I think you're going to get a little bit more like you do when Madden called the game, and then he's not going to be Madden, but Madden looked at the offensive defensive line and would point those things out. Now, when you think about who's calling games, it's all quarterbacks. It's Troy, it's Tony Romo. Collinsworth tries to do some of the offensive line stuff, but he's a former receiver. I think with JJ, he's going to give you some of that trench talk that I think intrigues a lot of people and point things out. It's like, hey, this run play hit, not just because this running back is a great dude, but watch these blocks. This is what they were trying to do. Look how good this is. I think he's going to have that element and add that element to the game that's really going to be fun to watch. So I think it's going to make him sound a little bit different, and I think that's going to be a really good thing.
It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see it.
Can't wait to see it.
He's going to thrive. He'll be successful. He'll be great. You and I are not going to do this next week. I'm going to Turks and Caicos.
Yeah, you're gone, dude.
Smell you
You're
later.
gone for a vacay. That's going to be a nice one, too.
I'll come back.
Can I sneak in your suitcase?
I'd love to, but I just don't think it'll happen. So, but I'm going to go from being translucent to I'll just be pale when I come back. I'm going to get
a little
tan.
Yeah. Little tan. That's going to be fun.
But I'll miss you. I'll miss this podcast.
Yeah, man.
We'll be back in 2 weeks to do it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Fun.
That'd be good.
Yeah, it was good seeing JJ out there. Made me think about what was going to be next with him on TV and how much you'll see him calling Texans games. But no, he'll be great. And I know you're great as well. And you too, watching and listening. You're great. The three of us, we had fun. This is Texans in the Lab, presented by Xfinity. We'll be back, like we said, in 2 weeks, and that'll be a doozy. So long.